Each conversation brings you wisdom and insight from people serving in ministry, business, education, family life, and more. These are the voices worth listening to, humble leaders who show up, lead well, and make a difference behind the scenes. Hey, friends, whoever's watching, we're back with our 10th episode. Can you believe we have 10 of these things? Uh, really, it's all started with a conversation you and I had about a dream, I guess, or a thought about, we go to conferences, we listen to podcasts, and hear lots of, famous people in the church world, famous people in the Christian influencer world. I hate that term, but it's a thing. People writing books, people speaking on stages, and just was kind of wondering, thinking, dreaming about what would it look like to talk to just people who didn't really have a platform or much of a platform. We're not on a stage every single week, and then really trying to dive down deeper into this idea of talking with people like not on the stage, so not hearing the canned speech, the prepared speech, but getting the real life talk, like the stuff they would share just to a friend when they say, "Hey, you've been doing this for a while. How is it that you're still doing it? What is helping you build resilience? What is helping you stay faithful and to have faith still, as a leader in your space?" So it's been cool. I've been really surprised at the variety of people we've been able to talk to, and really the interest from folks as they've kind of tuned in. So yeah, it's been fun. What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, I love it so much. And we were just talking recently about how blessed we have been to have such great guests and people that it was just comical because we got to a point where we were like, I don't know, maybe they would come on and these people would. And with these,
Yeah.
some of them, it's like meeting our heroes in a way, right? Like, we're like,
Yeah.
these are people we love and love listening to and learning from. So, it was really great. Thanks to all of you who did listen. We would love, again, not to plug this, but just like, share, follow all the things on YouTube, Spotify. It's on Substack. Like, we want to grow the audience because we just want to continue to have these conversations. And so this is a recap. We did this in episode 5, where we recapped the first 4 episodes we did, and this is our last one, probably well for 2025 certainly. And we are going to just kind of, I don't know, refuel, get reset, and bring on more great guests in 2026, starting in January. Have a little bit more of a better idea of what we're doing. We really didn't anticipate it, in my opinion, going this well. Like, and so,
Yeah. Yeah,
we're doing it.
We wanted to start. We just wanted to do something and like not worry about a lot of the uh stuff that we probably should worry about, but just get it going, just start somewhere. And so that's what we've done.
Exactly. So the content will be a little better. Probably the quality will be better. We'll work on all of that. So thanks for tuning in. So we're going to recap episode 6, um, 7, 8, and 9 today.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
everything from a leadership health mentor to immigration leader in a ministry to a couple that are kind of retired from pastoral ministry, but now on to a different kind of ministry. And then finally, we actually got an author, like a real author, like someone who's like published several books, is
doctor.
speaking, yeah, a doctor, someone who's speaking all over, like, and even if you're from our world, Brian and I's world is Christian church world, I don't know, maybe the largest Christian church. He spoke there on a Sunday. Uh, Now, I say largest in the U.S. You go over internationally, they put our numbers to shame. So anyway, so he had a little bit of clout behind him, but
For sure. So let's just jump in. So episode 6, we called, if you watched it on YouTube or Spotify, we called it Adventure, Vulnerability, and Connection. So I had my friend Wes Holt, and Wes is a health coach. He's also a leader, lay leader within his church in Oregon where they live. And I met him through my health journey, but then he challenged me to join him and hike the Grand Canyon in 2024. So in October of 2024, I met up with him in Vegas, took an RV down to the canyon. We hiked rim to rim in one day. 24 and something miles, in started it when it was dark and came out when it was almost dark, and it was a incredibly challenging, beautiful experience. And since then, I would consider Wes Holt to be a mentor of mine, also a friend, but just somebody who's constantly pushing me. And so we focused in that conversation on that experience of the challenge of hiking the Grand Canyon and the lessons he learned. But then we also went into one of his passions was mentoring, mentoring men, encouraging men to step out of their comfort zones spiritually, physically, mentally, and building. I think he referred to this as like meaningful conversations and connections through shared experiences and adventures. And I know you and I both like love adventures. We like to be outside. We like to do stuff we've never done before. So I guess just to kick it off, like, were there specific things that stood out to you in that conversation? You had never met him before. This was a guy that I brought to the table. What were your initial thoughts? And is as you've reflected on episode 6?
Yeah, I think a couple things that really stood out to me was he really highlighted the importance of invitation for men, whether you're talking about well, really, it's invitation to relationship. So he had a lot to say about mentoring, which I appreciated because mentoring it's such a valuable relationship for everyone, men and women, but I think especially for men, it's like a hard thing to find at times. And I know when I was a younger man, like longing for that kind of mentoring relationship, but not knowing how to find it, right? And so now being a little bit older, a little bit more seasoned, I think one of the things he just highlighted is like it's just the importance of older men and really just you're older than somebody else, the power of invitation to somebody else to come along for a journey, whether that's I think that's like what he did with you was amazing. Like that was like an event, a thing, an adventure that you guys as a group did together, men and women, and it was a complete bonding experience. But I also like how he actually that's just how he lives. Like it's just a natural thing for him to invite men into relationship and into backyard conversations. And so, yeah, so that just that reminder of invitation. I mean, that's what God does with us. He invites us along on this journey with him. And so that was really good. I think also the highlighting the importance of adversity for particularly for men in bonding. Like that's true. Like nothing's quite like adversity to bond men together. And then the idea. I remember one of the things he said in there was like but often we've got to be pushed into it. Like we're naturally want to be comfortable, but we've got to be pushed into it sometimes, which is a good reminder. Yeah, that's a good reminder of that reality for us.
I remember him talking about, and I don't remember if he said the guy's name, but a friend of his or somebody, whether it's from church or somewhere, who was at some event with him, and he kind of just like would introduce him to somebody, and and then he would just leave the conversation. Like
Yeah.
he knew this guy knew what Wes was about and what this other guy was about. So this guy, you talk about connecting, he would say, "Hey, this is my buddy Wes. Wes was also in the military, and Wes did this," and then those two guys would start talking, and his friend would just almost like leave the conversation. And Wes talked about how much of an impression that put on him, the importance of being known and seen, right?
Hmm.
All the things that we don't like to. It feels too feely or emotional for guys, but let's be real about it. Like we want to be known. We want people to notice our work and our effort and things like that. So I love, yeah, that you picked up on that same thing of being a connector.
Yeah, I love that illustration because I think that's I mean, definitely important uh for especially for guys who may be more introverted for sure, but also if you're walking into I think so if we put it like he wasn't necessarily talking about it in this context per se, but I think about it in the context even of like a church. So someone new walking in, particularly a guy walking in, can often feel very uncomfortable and trying to figure out where do they belong? What's their place? They don't know anyone. But to have that connector that's introducing them is huge. I also think about it just in terms of like if you're leading a group at work in a business or in a ministry setting, like for your even just like on your team, like making sure to be the kind of person that's including everybody on the team, making sure each person is like feeling heard, like and contributing. And if you watch, you'll know. I mean, you know, if you ever lead a team, and you'll know the ones that always will say their opinion, and then the ones that won't. But to be intentional about inviting those that won't into the conversation, I think is huge. Another thing was I just thought was super practical. He had a few questions that he mentioned that he will use to kind of draw people out into deeper conversation. So again, if we're talking about men, we tend to we can stay in the shallows. Sports, weather, if there's hunting, outdoors, whatever the fishing, men things. But he had these questions of like, what are you winning at as a man? What are you working on? And what's capturing your thoughts right now? Like not all of them at once, but like just some questions that he had kind of at the ready to kind of help turn a conversation potentially deeper. So I like that because it's an art. It's an art to do that.
Yeah. Well, so what are you winning at, Doug?
That's a great question, Ryan. You actually caught me on a week that I don't know that I feel like I'm winning at much of anything. But that's not that may sound kind of depressing, but actually it's something I say with a lot of faith, recognizing that God's at work no matter what I see and what I don't see. So yeah.
Well, I think Wes actually said this to me in one conversation somewhere. You're not like losing. If you're not winning, it's not like you're losing, you're learning. Right. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what you just said right there. Like it's weird, almost sounds weird to say I don't know if I'm winning, but okay, that's fair, but you're not losing. You're
Yeah.
learning. So that's really cool. I do want to add Wes and a different team of people. I didn't get to join them this year. Just recently walked out of the canyon again. However, this year there were fires. I don't know if you followed that on the news.
Oh. Uh-uh.
You're not able to do rim to rim because the North End had
Um,
experienced some fires a few months ago, I believe.
hmm.
Um, so they went down from the south, I believe, south end down in and across some, and then back out on a different trail. Still almost the equivalent of the rim to rim mile wise, definitely challenge wise, right? No
Yeah.
disrespect for doing that.
Yeah.
It was still
Yeah.
a massive undertaking. And I watched him do a video with his wife and he reflected on the year that I went with him being his first year, and he reflected on this year and some of the differences and things like that. And one of the statements he made that I just thought was really good was he said, "I'm doing the hard thing now so that it's easier later." Um,
It's
and I was
good.
like, man, this guy's 60s. He's in his 60s, right? He
Wow.
was a college athlete, but he was a bigger football player, so it wasn't like it was more muscle and strength. And so just to hear him, even in his 60s, say, we do the hard things today so that tomorrow they're easier. I was like,
Mhm.
man, isn't that like the journey with the Lord, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. That's awesome.
so I appreciated that comment, even though it wasn't on our podcast, but it was good. Any other thoughts on Wes in that conversation, mentorship?
No, I just, just waiting for you to plan with Wes our offstage rim to rim hike at the Grand Canyon.
Yeah,
Maybe 2 years at this point away.
there's no lack of dreams on this podcast. We're talking about freaking mug hiking. We're gonna do a conference eventually. I mean, if you don't know offstage yet, you're gonna be speaking at offstage in the near future.
Which is funny. That'd be kind of ironic if we have a conference with a stage for called offstage.
Just gonna be out in the back of the parking lot at Spire. So after Aaron Rocket comes off and speaks, then we're gonna interview.
I love that. I love that. I was just trying to figure out yeah. I was like, well, maybe we could like put the audience on the stage and then the speaker would be in the audience. I was like,
That's why.
how would you do that? I
That's
don't know
why.
how you would do that, but anyway, or
Like if you turned around in church too, right? Really,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
audience is the Lord, right? The audience is
yeah,
God.
right.
What if we all just turned around and didn't face the worship team?
Yeah,
We
yeah,
can.
yeah,
So then
yeah,
I'm not sure how we met Tony. Walk. I mean, how? Tell us
yeah.
how did that come?
So
Episode 7.
yeah, so with my work, I got connected with him through a GMPI. She had told me about how I was up in Northwest Indiana and told me about him and about the ministry they were doing with immigrants called the Welcome Network. And then later on, after we got this kicked off, she had messaged just said, "I really think you ought to like reach out to him because he's the real deal and doing the ministry that he's doing is just not something. It's definitely a hot button issue." And just trying to navigate that with a lot of faith and grace. And so, yeah, reached out to him. He was probably the one that we had the least amount of connection with personally. I mean, outside of maybe Dr. Sleeth, but we kind of got to know him through his books that we read. But with Tony, it was great. So he leads a ministry called the Welcome Network for immigrants in the Northwest Indiana and Chicago suburbs. So that was a really, I mean, just enlightening conversation and interesting to be at the forefront of doing something to help a very real issue that's also very politicized. So that was kind of fun. That was, I say fun, that was kind of just cool hearing about him. And I mean, I'm just impressed. Like, I don't usually do the stats or whatever, but like the fact that their network over 11 years has served over 1,600 families, and his heart for that is not just to have a nonprofit that's out there doing their thing, but it's really his heart is, how to the church engages with with them, right? Like it's not them doing it and the church just paying for it, but like he wants the church to do like their extension of the church doing this work of hospitality. I think for me that was one of the biggest things that came out of this was this theme of hospitality, of welcoming the stranger, and the broader applications of not just, let's say just, but immigrants, but also any stranger, anybody that you encounter in your world that you don't know. And how do we as Jesus followers provide that kind of Jesus kind of welcome to those that are around us? So that was one of the bigger things that stood out. What about you?
Yeah, definitely the amount of compassion that he just when he talks that you could just tell in his voice. Um, I he just brought up a lot of things like I know you commented on the episode about like you never thought about when the family comes with a dog, right? Like
Oh
the
yeah.
to travel with your dog. Like there's these things you don't think about. And I am not great at it yet, but trying to improve on it. Recently, we have a young man in our church family who was serving the Lord in Mexico, and he met his wife there. Like, and he married her, and so English is her second language, and it's pretty broken and not real good. And on Sunday, I was celebrating, and I said, "Hey, they're back because they were gone for the wedding." And I said, let's celebrate their marriage or whatever. And after the um, church service, she said, I was so confused because I wasn't expecting you to say anything about that. And so everybody was clapping, but it took her a minute for it to catch up what was happening. So, like, when I looked at her, she looked like a deer in the headlights, like confused about what was happening while everyone was clapping, right? And so it reminded me of like be understanding and think through things a little more. And I probably would handle that different if I went back because I don't think she was embarrassed. I just think it was interesting. Like I should have probably talked to her before the service and said, "Hey, before I preach, I just want to celebrate what you guys did. So I just want you to know I'm going to do that." And because I think she was trying to catch up on the language barrier, right? Like, wait, that's my
Yeah.
name and I do know what marriage is like, and all these things. And it's like, oh, now everyone's clapping. Like, it's it's it's
Yeah.
it's it's funny, right? Because I'm friends with them, but then you start thinking about like real people in our communities that are our neighbors,
Mhm.
that even not just from other countries, from other cultures, subcultures in America, right? Someone from the city
Mhm.
moves into the country, somebody from the country moves into the city. It's a very different lifestyle. Um, I just love the idea of welcoming people, being better
Hmm.
at welcoming. Um, our
Yeah.
family, we love going to Disney World. When you go to a Disney hotel, they always say welcome home. Like that's a big
Uh,
focus for them. Like, they want it to feel like you belong here. And
yeah.
I mean, obviously it's not a Christian organization, but it's a universal uh desire for
Yeah.
everybody to feel belong. So I
Yeah.
loved the on that. Probably the thing you said that stood out to me the most that I thought was interesting. He said when everybody wants to make things, he was talking about how everything seems so political, but he said the reality is, he said if you do the welcoming and if you do hospitality biblically, you're going to be too conservative for the left and too liberal for the right.
Right.
And I was like, that's a
Mm,
challenge. Like
mm,
to not make it one or the other because it's not. It's there's so much more involved than just a political policy when you're
right.
dealing with families and when you're dealing with people that matter to God. So I
Right.
loved that was
Yeah.
probably the one that pushed me the most to like consider my views on things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I know, like, kind of see what you're saying there. But like, yeah, if you look at Jesus and follow his way, look at scripture and try to implement really what scripture would say, yeah, you're right. Like you don't really fit, you won't fit in the world, the world's
Yeah.
kind of polarizing way of looking at things. And I liked his use of saying, of seeking the third way of Jesus between faith and politics. That that is just yeah, it's just that third way. It's just not going to be it's not this and it's not that. It's there's a different way, and that's what Jesus always did. He always had a different way of approaching things than we naturally would.
And we just want it to be the same way every time. That's not
That's right.
want somebody to say no, it's always wrong or it's always right. And it's like it's just not like that. There's so many
Right.
more variables to what's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah. I think another a point I thought was really good was remembering to view ourselves as scripture would talk about as being strangers and exiles, right? That this is not our home, our final home, when we remember that, that helps us remember that those that are moving into our neighborhoods and in our communities are not really the strangers. Like we're all kind of transient, but the more we are someplace, the more we are located someplace, the more comfortable we get, and comfortableness kind of breeds that complacency and fear. I think that was a big theme too of the of our talk was how fear is what keeps us from providing a good welcome. We're kind of fearful of the stranger, fearful of the awkwardness that might happen in a conversation, or fearful of, we sometimes people think too, like when new people are coming to your space, right? They're going to take something from you, right? So there's like this fear of that.
Or like,
Uh,
or take over
yeah, yeah,
or like
yeah,
take control.
yeah.
And
So that
I
was,
do want to say I do want to say one more thing. Do you remember
mhm.
him talking about the work-life balance a little bit and talking about when
Oh,
he was sure he used to think that it was like, this compartmentalized thing and he said he kind of learned this the hard way that at some level his family had to take precedence over, because he knew that sometimes he was going to have to go to the airport at 2 a.m. to pick a family up or there was going to be these other things. And so he had to learn that sometimes it was okay to work less and be with your family more because the balance was going to circle around, right? Like
yeah,
eventually there was going to be time when he was going to spend 12 hours more, longer doing something else. And I think anyone in ministry can relate to that, right? Anyone in ministry can relate to like you get in this rhythm and then somebody passes away or there's a building campaign and you're working more. So sometimes we got to um, choosing to cheat. Is that Andy Stanley?
that's Andy Stanley. Yeah, yeah,
Cheating on
yeah.
someone.
But
There
like,
you
I
go.
think that, yeah, I think he was expressing a very real thing for anybody that there's balance is a myth. So it's not 50% here, 50% there, but it's about navigating the tensions of the different responsibilities we have. So I even felt I appreciate his honesty and openness and just the idea that he didn't feel like he had it figured out. figured out that he'd done better in some seasons than he had in others, and still kind of working on that. But also at the same time, he had his uh, um, outlets, I guess you would say, his life-giving things that he tried to practice, whether it was cycling or other things that he would do. So that was helpful. That's really good. Um, yeah, it's good. Well, moving on to our uh, what was it, eighth episode with Scott and Jackie Jones. At this again, completely different. 40 years of pastoral ministry. He was a pastor, and they were in this ministry for 40 years, much of it at the same church. So much of the year, those 40 years at the same church. So that was pretty cool. And then here in the last couple of years, they had retired from that, but had went into a new season of ministry. One, Scott was working with the Sullivan Foundation, which is helps churches with investments and funding for building stuff. And then they both were working, Jackie as well, working with uh, a new organization called 10-2 out of Luke 10-2 that's really located around Nebraska, Iowa, but a ministry that's helping support ministers with both existing ministers and helping churches to cast a vision for calling people into ministry and how to and supporting that. So I just, it was great to, well, really, our first guest that were both kind of on the other side of a long tenured ministry, and it was both of them together. So I loved having both of them. I loved, which is always fun. I'm sure Ryan, just when you and your wife are together with other people, same with me and my wife, it's always interesting to see the different ways that we might express something at the same event or the same experience, and I think Jackie was a great part of having just having her voice in that mix was a breath of fresh air, a realness to it. Um, I liked a couple of things I heard in there was just that relentless pursuit, as particularly when they were in more of the located ministry, but that relentless pursuit of unity, both them together being unified in ministry and in the calling of ministry, and then for leading people in the church specifically, but leading people for unity together. And one of the things I picked up on that I thought was so good was just remembering Satan's predictable attacks after good things happen. And he just said he began to notice over the years how after something really good would happen, man, there would be some kind of something that seemed to be an attack of a spiritual attack of some sort. So I thought that was really good. What about you?
Um, it was honestly out of all, I mean, this will be eight guests and two review podcasts. That might be the one that I have the least amount of set to say, but I felt like they just brought, uh, without even saying anything, they brought like this calm, like feeling of like what what I want, like a peace that I want to feel when I'm done doing the
Mhm.
ministry that I'm in now, and being able to
Yeah,
be like, they're not retiring, they're giving back. Yeah, they may be getting paid to do it in some sense, but they're looking down at people like you and I, and even lower, younger, and going, how can I invest in them so that when they retire, financially, their churches and things are healthy and their
yeah,
spirit is healthy. Like Jack, they just kept talking about their soul, and I just like left that conversation like feeling like I had been poured into without them really saying much. I don't mean that. It was very calming, and it reminded me, probably the biggest takeaway for me was like the importance of our spouses, what regardless of how practically involved they are, their like nurturing and calm support of of us is incredibly important.
yeah, 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 absolutely. I mean, well, yeah, we were just talking earlier about importance of mentoring. Like they're probably the model uh couple that you would just want to sit down with, right? And have that conversation as a younger ministry couple or a midway ministry couple, whatever. And I mean, and they're doing it, that's what they're doing with 10-2. They're both leading different cohorts where Jackie's leading a spouses cohort, and Scott's leading a one for the for ministers or for the men. And so that's been cool. I mean, they talked about that a little bit, and I've had some other conversations with them beyond that about that. And I just feel like yeah, that's what's needed. That kind of wisdom and being able to pass down, because it's not like stuff. Like I think even what kind of to what you're saying, like it's not like, oh, here was this, um, I'm gonna say this this is not bad. I think this is very good. They weren't the couple that's coming on saying, oh, here's like the big thing, and here's our sub points, and here's the book, right? They were just saying, oh, this is just real life, right? Even their honesty about going to counseling, particularly when he was beginning to transition, thought was so wise. Wow. I know a lot of ministers, families will resist counseling, but so important, particularly at transitions, but anytime, right? There's some kind of challenge and you're trying to figure some things out. So that was cool. That was a good encouragement right there.
Yeah. Yep. It was honestly one of my favorites, and I just think retirement is not biblical, especially from
Yeah.
ministry. Like calling, and I think some of our other guests have talked about this. It's not about where we are, it's about who we are and what we're
Yeah.
becoming.
Yeah.
So for listen to two people who have done stuff together but sort of separate in ways, both say like, "Oh, we're still just doing ministry." He's not preaching like he was, and she's not doing what she was, but and that's encouraging because I don't want to stop. Like I don't
Right.
want to post out of here. Like I want to continue to impact God's kingdom. So that
Yeah.
just gave me a lot of hope for the
Yeah.
future. That there's always going to be a role for Ryan, right? There's going to be a day where people are tired of him preaching. There will always be a role though. God will
Yeah.
have something that I can offer the kingdom. So that brought me a lot
Yeah.
of
That's
encouragement.
really good. No, that's a really good point in their example of, yeah, not retired, just a different season of ministry, a different, it looks differently. And, just they're enjoying it, right? That they seem to be loving that. These, even as you're saying that, Ryan, like three things like were standing out to me. One I hadn't mentioned yet that they said was, particularly Jackie's mentioned about the importance of having people who are supporting you with prayer. So it seems like, in the church world, but also even now, just having people that were praying for them and with them. So that was huge. I think that's we sometimes can so easily dismiss prayer. When all else fails, pray. It's like, well, no, actually, when you don't do anything else, just pray, and then pray along the way, and then pray afterwards. But having people doing that for them was huge. Um, and so that was, yeah, that was good. I think I had two other things I was kind of highlighting, but I've already mentioned them, so it's fine. It's good. But yeah, supporting the prayer was such a huge thing.
Yeah.
Well, on to
Uh,
the last one. How Ryan, tell us how in the world you got to talk, or how we got to talk to Dr. Matthew Sleep.
well, big shout out to Brandon Moore, really. So again, I mean, if anything, like when you watch a TV series and you go, man, I love how it all tied together, right? That's kind of what we're doing here with season one of this podcast, because our very first guest was your friend Brandon Moore. And when we asked what a book was that had influenced him. He talked about this book called Reforesting Faith that was by Dr. Matthew Sleeth. And I'm always a guy, I mean, if we're going to ask them what they're reading, like we should consider at least looking into it if it's something we would be interested in. So I went and bought the book as soon as we talked to him. And at the end of the book, the author, Dr. Sleeth, says, "Hey, I'd love to hear what you thought about the book." And so I like to leave a good review, and so I just sent him an email and said, "Hey, I really enjoyed it. It really opened for me. It opened my eyes to a lot of things I'd never considered at all, in regards to God's love for creation and why He gave it to us and how it works and all of those things." And so I was inspired by that book. So I just wanted to say, man, like it was a good. It really challenged me. I loved it. And then I just threw out like, "Hey, crazy thought," but like my friend Doug and I have a podcast where we talk to people and would love to have you on. And his wife responded, was like, yeah, he would love to do that. I was like, let's go. So then we were like, we had to have Brandon on that episode. So if you haven't seen episode 9, you need to go back and watch it because Brandon makes a cameo. He's on there with us. Um, and it's full circle, right? Because you go from episode 1 to now, Brandon is talking about doing a sermon series called Tree Huggers, like as a result of this conversation, and gonna preach a sermon on Easter, about the ultimate tree hugger, Jesus Christ. And then we're leaving laughing in that conversation, going after we get off the podcast with Dr. Sleeth, we're like, Brandon, you should have Dr. Sleeth come and teach one of those Sundays, right? Like, so
Yeah.
anyway,
What a
um,
what a humble presence he brought.
so he was if you don't know, he was a former medical, like emergency medical doctor, and then was actually an atheist. And he shared his story of how he came to faith, the transition from moving from medicine into ministry, and just his experiences with like environmental stewardship, interpreting the Bible, the importance of that, significance of trees in the Bible. It was, I mean, I don't, you go ahead with like, there was a lot that stood out to me. What was your takeaways, quotes, like dive into it.
It's kind of he was probably put a good kind of in cap on our really our conversations with everybody in the sense of this theme of calling. He brought that up in terms of his own calling from emergency medicine to what he called an oddball ministry of caring for nature, of seeing God. It's not just God's handiwork in nature for sure, but also just seeing how even the language of trees is seen throughout all of Scripture. So that was pretty cool, and just his challenge with you know starting the ministry called Blessed Earth, and how early on, got lots of resistance, lots of flack, because there's definitely, in culture, in church culture, Christian culture, there's definitely this belief that doesn't matter, creation care doesn't matter, and he got called, a tree hugger all the time, which I was gonna not bring this up till later, but I'll just say it now. Like that was personally moving to me. He shared it in our conversation. He also shares it in the book Reforesting Faith, but the idea that at first when he was being called a tree hugger he would be a little offended by that, but then he began realizing and associating it with Jesus himself and Jesus's crucifixion on a tree, and basically saying, oh, Jesus is the ultimate tree hugger. I thought that was a good kind of more than spin, but a good way to spin that around, to look at it from that standpoint. I'm like, oh man, yeah, right. Like just the idea of Jesus, his death for us, the physical act of his death for us was on a tree, was on a cross. So that was moving. In that whole conversation about calling, that you referenced this, you mentioned it about he really brought up that we can kind of get too focused on what am I going to do, God's calling for what I'm doing, but he was like, God's call to us is to be obedient, and focuses more on what we're becoming, who we're becoming, than what we're doing. So that was really good. That's such an important theme for for everybody, for leaders. I think important theme for ministers. Again, that is also a theme that we started with all the way back with Brandon, talking about that his statement of, was I called to plant a church in Montana, or was I just called to the mountains? Was I just wanting to go to the mountains, right? So I thought it's a really important question to ask. That the deeper calling is, who are we becoming in Christ?
Yeah. So yeah, it was a good episode, no doubt about it. The one thing that I thought was interesting was he talked about, oh shoot, it was just on my mind. Oh, he said, was talking about the Ten Commandments. Do you remember this? And he said, what's crazy is 9 of them, if you break them, you're toast, right? Like if you murder someone, you're fired. You have committed adultery, you're fair. But he said, but if you break the Sabbath, you get a raise, right? You remember that? I was like,
Uh-huh.
yo, that's so true. And then he also talked about um, how the Ten Commandments really address um, like everything. You know, he's like, a- when when you practice Sabbath, I think is the way you said this, you avoid breaking the commandments, right? Because if
Hmm.
you're practicing Sabbath, you're not going to have an affair, right? And
Right.
it's hard to murder somebody when you're walking with the Lord in rest. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
so I was like, man, that was a really good perspective for me to be like the importance of Sabbath. Even though we talked mostly about the forest and the like all of that, which I think was so good. The other thing you said that really convicted me was he said, um, like Woodstock took the dove, the Holy Spirit image. You know, culture has tried to take the rainbow and cult. He said, but the only thing that they can't take is that's left is trees,
Mm.
and that's what
Yeah.
Jesus died on.
Yeah.
Like the only thing you can't
Mm.
repurpose for the enemy is trees. And
Yeah.
I was like, wow. So it's like the enemy's goal is to redefine everything, but what he can't change is the importance of trees. And in Genesis, he says in the first three chapters, if you underline every verse that has a tree in it, he said you'll have over a third of scripture in the first three chapters of Genesis will be highlighted because it's all about trees. And then you go to the end and it's reclaiming the garden. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
Revelation is. So it's just a
Right.
beautiful gospel picture. He says it so clearly. I can't recommend the book enough, Reforesting Faith. Even if you're like, I'm not a nature guy, it will challenge you. And I I have enough books I need to read, but it's on my short list to get Sabbath, to get that book, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
uh, and
Yeah. I think he made this point too. Uh, this kind of more in regards to not just trees, but nature in general, but that there's something in us that's craving a desire to return to the innocence and that direct relationship with God. And I think that's just I think that's what at least that's what I experience in nature. Like there's something there that I've never been able to put my finger on. Like why is like, oh, I'm just a nature guy, I'm just a nature guy. I just like being outside. But like why is that, right? Like what and that, even people that aren't really nature people, there's always something in nature, that draws us that is kind of hard to explain. I think that's part of it, that it's that drawing back to God in 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 the innocence and that relationship with Him. The Another thing, yeah, like on the Sabbath, I saw he was super practical. Like when he was talking about how they had moved, I can't remember how many times in a period of time.
times 18 months.
Yeah. So, and he just talked about how they always practiced the Sabbath through that whole time. And he could clearly see, looking back, how God had brought it all together, even though they wanted to work on those days and wanted to do stuff that they ordinarily wouldn't do, but they wanted to honor the Sabbath, and how you just saw God's honoring them from that.
And this stuff keeps coming back. He also said we were talking about sabbatical. I brought up that idea that a lot of churches and the trend is to give people sabbaticals. And I'm going to be honest, kind of jumped on that train. Like I think that's a good thing, right? Do you remember what he said about Sabbath or sabbatical? I've never needed a sabbatical because I've always practiced Sabbath.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, whoa. See,
Yep.
we're reacting to our
Yep.
poor management of the command by
Yep.
giving people extended time off.
Yep.
Like we're crashing and burning and then telling churches you need to let them crash and burn and come back or you're going to lose them. And really, we should be saying, make your minister practice Sabbath.
Yep. Yeah.
Man, that was nuts. I
That,
didn't like that. I didn't like that,
yeah.
doctor.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That I kind of forgot about that. That was so good. Because that I mean, sabbatical is not. It's not. I don't think he was against him, but just the idea that it's if you're in a place, a church, a ministry, I guess that would do that. Then you still fall into that trap of like, well, I'm going to work. you work so hard just to get to the sabbatical time. And he's like, but if you back up and then have that weekly rhythm, that's like to what you're saying, to what he said, yeah, you don't need the big one. It's kind of like it's the same thing, like, even with what do most of us do, just people in general, like they schedules get so filled and they work so hard, and then they got this vacation that's a few months away, and so they just work really hard, and they think, okay, I can just get to the vacation, just get to the vacation, everything will be okay. And then you get to the vacation, and the first 3 days you don't want to, or at least me, like you don't want to do anything, you don't enjoy it as much because you're just coming down off of the busyness, right? Like, and so you can't even enjoy it. So, but this idea
And
of,
then when
yeah,
you come back to work, you're catching up.
that's right. Yeah.
When was it?
Right. Right. Yeah. So I think that right there. And I haven't read his book on Sabbath yet. I've got it on my list, but I want to, because I think he's right. It's the most underrated practice that we can do. It is the most, uh, I would just, yeah, the, the most broken of the Ten Commandments that's applauded. So yeah,
Well, Doug, season one was fun.
it
I
was
want to
fun.
close. I want to close, and I didn't talk about this. I want to do something fun here. You ready for this?
Oh man. Oh, I can't wait.
So we just recap four of them. We'll go back talk. We had Brandon Moore at the beginning. We also had Dave Fremstead. Remember him? And
I do.
well, you know him. Yeah, you remember him. Stephanie McMumphrey
hmm
and Steve Rittenhour. So I got three questions for you, and if you want me to play, I'll play. Um, which of our guests in season one would you hire if you could tomorrow at the ministry you're a part of?
Oh man. Would I hire them? Oh my gosh, how do I pick that? You know what? I don't know if I have an answer for that. Like, I would definitely, um, I mean, Dr. Sleeth would be great from a like, I wouldn't want to take away from his work, but I would want his like coaching, right? Or his mentoring. Which I think actually is what I would say about like the Jones. I would want their mentoring. Like I'd want to
One of our
get them, yeah, I'd want to get them close to keep us all healthy. Basically, is what I'm saying. Like, because someone like, really them, Dr. Sleeth, I think particularly Dave Fremstead, like they have this from a ministry standpoint, they have a longer term vision of it and have done it long enough that they're not going to get caught up in stuff that I still get caught up with in terms of, like, kind of the anxiousness of getting things done, right? Like, oh, I just gotta do this, gotta get this done, gotta reach this goal. And they'd be like, yeah, it's important, but are you abiding with Jesus, right? Are you staying attached to Jesus? Because that stuff's going to take care of itself if you do this. So yeah, no, you don't
good
get
one.
away from this. You gotta answer.
Is Brandon younger than me?
Oh man, I don't know.
I'm
I don't know.
42.
I think he's around that age. And I just want to say you are channeling Brandon today with the backwards cap.
Yeah, he does it better for sure. I think uh, I'm drawn to the people that are energetic and passionate. I think of Jamie's passion. I think of Stephanie's passion. Even
Yes.
like that's who I'm drawn to. But I think I would want to hire um, Brandon more because I would bring him on absolutely instantly as part of the teaching team. Like I
hmm
he's probably a great Bible teacher. And being in Wabash, you've been here. It's a little his pace. I mean, it's a little
Yeah. Oh, there's plenty of
Montana.
nature.
It's
Plenty of
not, yeah, it's
nature.
not Montana, but he can tell hunting stories and
Yep.
he can tell farming stories. So
Yep.
that would be the one I would hire. I think it would be safe. People would welcome him and like it'd be good. Which of our guests are you going on vacation with?
Oh, definitely Wes. I definitely went on vacation
Oh
with Wes.
yeah, yeah. That's not even fair, dude. Because we'll end up at like yeah, because we'll end up at like Antelope something or the Grand Canyon. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. But if it was going to be like, I think if you rephrase that a little bit, like hang out with for a day, I think Jamie Ridnour would be like a blast of like I don't like, I feel like she starts her day and then it's like, where's Guy going to take me today? And like, it's just going to be like this adventure of like, where did we end up? You end up at the, I end up in Washington, D.C. That's all. Oh, okay.
Okay, here's my final one, and then you
Oh,
can put a bow on the series. Um, Hollywood makes a movie about one of our guests, and who plays them?
uh, oh, man. Uh,
This is how my brain works all day long, bro.
yeah. See, I think we're gonna make a movie about Brandon's life. Brandon's getting a lot of love on this podcast because he was the one that first said yes. Uh, and he's gonna kill me for this because this actor's way older, like way older than him. But like Matthew McConaughey is gonna play Brandon.
Oh yes, I actually, I actually love that. Oh my gosh. Oh, oh
Yeah,
my.
that's a great question, by the way. I like that. That's a good question. Okay, what about you?
I can't top that. I want to top that. Um,
Uh, yeah.
hold on. Let me think. You know, okay. Um, okay. I want to see Ben Stein play Dr. Sleep.
It's a good thing he's never gonna watch this. So
That's not a dig.
no,
It's
it's not
not a dig.
offensive.
I
It's
think
not offensive.
he would have a great voice. He would be
Yes.
very composed and monotone and intelligent. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's
But
awesome.
it would be funnier to watch Will Ferrell do Dr. Sleep.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That would be funny. Yeah. Yeah, it would be
That would be
good.
fun. So
Oh my
anyway,
gosh.
bring it together, man. Thanks for doing this with me. I look forward to the future. What do we
Yeah,
need
me
to know?
too. Me too. And if thank you for whoever's watching. Thanks for watching. Join us with us. We'll be back and with hopefully better, right? Hopefully better and get a little better at the conversations and lots of content out there. I think, we're a sea of awash with content, right? Especially on YouTube. But hopefully bringing something that'd be valuable to keep people moving forward in leadership. And yeah, so thanks.